Thank you very much for that warm welcome. I really appreciate it. I know there are still a few people coming in from the waiting room, so they'll just sort of join us as we go on. So I don't know if everybody heard, but you are on mute at the moment, but if you keep your cameras on, I find that really helpful because it's really useful to see people either nodding their head or shaking their head at whatever I'm saying, or laughing or crying. That's just good to know. And also it's good to know there's real people out there. That are real people are here. So thank you very much for those of you that keep your camera on. It really helps me. So welcome. You are here to think about resilience in times of rapid change. And I think we can all agree that this is a time of rapid change, and it has been for quite a sustained amount of time now, for over a year. So what I've put together for you today is we're going to look a bit at what is resilience. What does that mean? Break that down a bit. Then also think about change, and in particular rapid disruption and the impact that can have. And you're all organizational people, so we're going to think about it on a couple of different levels. So you can think about it on an individual level, on a team level, and also at a wider organizational level. And then I'm sure most people would like to leave with something practical today. So we'll have a look at, what can actually really be done to help build personal resilience, and what can you do to help others and your organization to become more resilient. So if that's what everybody's happy to do and thought they'd be doing today, I will get started. Is everybody happy? You can give me the thumbs up, a smile, share anything, that's great. Thank you very much. That all helps. So just want to say a little bit about the Oakridge Centre, who I work with. And again, I'm hoping you're all very familiar. And I know we have some other people here from Oakridge today. Bridget, I don't know if you're on the line yet. If you are, please wave at people and so we can see you. And I just want to tell you a little bit about what Oakridge gets involved in. So we are a leadership development organisation, and we sort of will do whatever it takes to help people be better leaders and organizations be more effective. And it falls into these 4 elements. So about, as a leader, being able to engage and emotionally and intellectually in your leadership, looking at the mental health, the resilience and well-being, which we'll get into a bit more today. We're great at working with teams to improve team excellence. And also in times of change and performance coaching, we get involved in that. So it's all about accelerating team and individual performance. And here is an example of some of the many organizations we have worked with. And you will see they are from all different sectors, from the private sector, the public sector, large, small, medium, fast moving, slow moving. And I suppose what we're just trying to convey here is we work with lots of different organizations. We always enjoy it. And if you think we can help, we would love to hear from you. So let's get started. What is resilience? And I always like to start with a definition, actually. And this one is from Psychology Today. And resilience is that hard to describe quality that allows some people, when they're knocked down by life, to come back stronger than ever. And rather than letting failure overcome them and drain their resolve, they find a way to rise from the ashes. You might have your own definition of resilience. Another one I quite like is Tigger. I think he's a great example of resilience. And, life's not about how fast you can run or how high you climb, but how well you bounce. And it's that, well, we hear it talked about as bounce back, but I actually think in our current environment, it's actually more about bouncing forward. We know the world will never be the same again. Some people may have been in denial about that for a short amount of time, but we all know it's going to be different. And we don't know how different it's going to be, but we do need to bounce forward into whatever's coming at us. So let's break resilience down in a bit more detail then, a bit more granularity. And having resilience and again, you can think about this individually at a team level or an organizational level. You know, it's about having some flexibility in your planning. So you've got a bit of room. If something goes wrong, you can flex and keep going. It gives you the ability to withstand a shock. So if something unexpected happens, you sort of take stock and are able to keep going. The ability to adapt to change. And, you know, this is important. I think we're all in the biggest change management experiment that there's ever been, and we're all in it, as you know, as well as helping it happen. So resilience really helps in that situation. It keeps you focused on pursuing your goal. So if you have a goal and something happens and you're driven off track, resilience really helps you get back up, work out where you are, work out where your goal is from where you are now, and keep going for it. It's also about anticipating risk and about things that might go wrong. And if they do happen, how you either mitigate the risk or minimize it or respond to it. And it's very much about protecting weak spots. I mean, for those of you that are in learning and development, you'll know anyway that often our strengths can also be our weak spots. So it's about being able to know what they are and have a cunning plan on how to deal with it if something happens. And if we think about resilience at work, so it gives us the ability to live authentically and to really interact and be cooperative in how we work with others. It gives us the ability to maintain perspective so we can step back and take a look at the bigger picture. It helps us build our networks, which again helps us in the longer term, whether it's career development or customer development or products. It helps us manage stress, and it can help us find our calling. So, you know, what is it that gives me true joy? And am I doing it where I am? And you know, am I doing the thing I was sent here to do? So before we go any further, I'd like to do a bit of a poll and get some more feedback from you in the audience. So we're going to go do two things at once because I know you're all great at multitasking. We're going to have a poll, and I'm asking you, you know, the resilience challenges you have now, where are they? Are they at your personal level? Are they at a leadership level? Because a lot of you are working with leaders to help them in their organizations. Are they at a team level, either your team or across wider teams? Or are they at a whole organizational level? The chances are there may be more than one, but in the poll that's just going to come up, if you can choose one or more of those, that would be really helpful. And at the same time, if you'd like to open your chat box and give me some feedback on more specifics. So if it's a personal level, what is that specific resilience challenge right now? Is there just too much happening, can't get enough time to sleep? Or if it's a leadership challenge, you know, our leaders, I don't know, maybe struggling to balance the people working from home and people in the office, but if you can type into the chat, that would be really helpful.
And I think we have about 57, 58, 60 people who have voted already. So if the remaining people could cast their votes, thank you.
So I can see some of the messages there, you know, helping people at all levels, personal burnout, supporting the leadership team with organizational change. There's quite a few on the personal level. I think we'll close the poll shortly and then you can see how the percentage spread. Zoom fatigue, I think everybody is experiencing that, and here we are on another Zoom.
So we've just another 10 people to vote if you can.
Challenge with individual employees at the leadership, and the organization is moving too fast for some people to keep up.
Okay, we're going to end the poll now, if that's all right, Claire Marie.
Yes, please do.
Okay, last votes in. And here are the results.
So we can see from the results there, nearly 60% of everybody is having resilience at a personal level is a challenge. And everywhere else as well, but that's really predominant, that's 60%. And then in turn, you're supporting leaders and teams and the wider organization. So that's quite a tension, that's quite a responsibility to be holding that. So now I know why so many people are here. And again, if you can see in the chat, if everyone's having a look, you know, there's a wide variety of challenges there. Team going through redundancy as well as yourself. Managers ensuring there's sufficient training. The challenges of people returning to work. Burnout, we've heard a lot about, you know, being on full tilt for 14 months with no break. Personal, no time for work or family. Maggie, that one's interesting. Issue with employees swearing in Teams meetings. I suspect that might have happened before, but may not have been as obvious. Okay, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And hopefully that helps you see that, you know, all organizations are having challenges and all individuals at this stage. So let's keep going then. So if we look at change, change is difficult, but actually not changing is fatal. And, you know, as there are quite a lot of myths around change actually. And as a species, we are one of the most adaptable species ever and are made to deal with change. We may not like it, but we can do it. And I think that is one of the big lessons I've certainly learned in the last year. You know, as somebody who's been a change management practitioner for over 20 years, I have been amazed at the speed of what has actually been achieved in the last 12 months. Now, it was not easy and it was not pain-free, but it is impressive. Some of the transformation that has been achieved could have taken about 10 years rather than 1 year to do. However, there's a lot of fallout in that and stress and emotional response to that. So it's definitely not easy, but it's interesting how possible it has been. But what does that mean for us then, both individually, at a team level, and then also at an organizational level? So what I want to share with you are some models and thoughts. Really just to put some ideas in the room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share these with you, and then we're going to get a chance to break out and discuss them in a little bit more detail. Now, I'm fully expecting that many of you will be very familiar with this, affectionately known as the change curve. So it's John Fisher's process of transition. And I suppose what's interesting, the few points I'd like to make about this is, what's interests me about this is it is a process, and so you go through it. And you know, here are some of the responses. Some of them, you know, initially a bit anxious about what's happening or delighted.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think, hold on a second. This is really loud. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, I am. I'm just.
And you know what? So I've been excited about.
I'm just listening to a Zoom on resilience. So yeah.
So whoever's that, can you just mute? We can hear you.
You're absolutely soaked. Are you absolutely soaked? Oh.
So we can see that initially a bit anxious and then maybe happy that something's about to happen. And then you find out a bit more details about what's going to happen, and you can go into denial pretty quickly, or you're going through that roller coaster of fear and threat and maybe even depression, like, you know, what is this? What's going on? Do I really want to be here? And then normally over time you get to gradual acceptance of whatever the change is, and then ready to move forward. Now, some of the points that I'd like to make here are, this does look like a left to right diagram, but it is not a one-way street, and people can pendulum up and down on this curve. And I think that's really important for you to remember, both at an individual level, like where am I, where am I today, where am I tomorrow, but also where are your people? And they, as new information comes out, they can pendulum back across this and have to go through the whole curve again. And that is very important as HR people, when you're communicating with people, when you're briefing staff, when you're preparing leaders to do whatever is being done. And then being aware of where you are on this emotional roller coaster. The next one I want to share with you is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And again, I'm expecting you to be very familiar with this. I think this is interesting and useful in times of change, whenever you think about it and the change curve at the same time. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll know, at the very bottom level, as you satisfy each level, you can move up to the next. So, the first are very, what we would call basic life needs. Do I have food, air, warmth, and then safety needs, a safe place to live and protected, law and order, stability. And then you start to get into, belonging. Do I feel part of a team or part of a unit? And these are all the hygiene factors. Those three you need to have for people to sort of not be in a distressed state. And then above that, this is where, people have aspirations, they want to achieve more, status, responsibility. And if you can get quite zenny at level 5 on self-actualization. Now, if we think of the rapid change that has happened in the last 12 months, what has been happening to people? Where are they at? Again, as HR people, I'm imagining you've had a lot of work to do around furloughing people, maybe making some people redundant now, bringing people back to work. And can you imagine what level they're at in Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And then think about the emotional roller coaster that we've just seen on the change curve. Another concept I want to share with you is that of Vuca. And again, I'm expecting quite a few of you are familiar with this. Certainly at Oakridge, we've been talking about Vuca for a long time, 5-10 years maybe. But I will say personally, although I can intellectually understand it and explain it and describe it, it is actually only in the last 12 years or 12 months that I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is Vuca, that we are in it, not right here, right now. So, the V for volatility, when there's unpredictable change without any clear patterns or trends. The U for uncertainty, so, frequent disruptive changes, and where the past is not a good predictor of the future. C for complexity, so lots of things are changing all at the same time. It's not just one thing. And so there can be, and they're all intertwined, so it's quite complex. And the A is for ambiguity. So there's little clarity on what's real and true, and then how to predict what to do next. So again, I'm not sure you want to thumbs up this or smile at it, but if you recognize that, definitely give us a wave or something to sort of let us know that you've recognized that. Yeah, there's a lot of thumbs up there. And then this one, that for the artists or even computer scientists out there in the audience, this is one of my favorites, the idea of fractals. Now, a fractal is a repeating pattern, and when you scale in or scale back, you sort of have the same pattern. And it happens very naturally in nature. So you can see the fern leaf on the right-hand side and the shell. So again, this is the whole large leaf. If you zoom into one of the littler ones, you can see it's the same pattern, and then you zoom in again. And then on the left-hand side, it's a digital picture. And again, if you zoom in on there, the same thing happens. Now, the reason why I think this is interesting in times of change is because this is what happens in organizations. So, and to patterns of behavior and to emotions. So if there's an emotion happening in one part of the organization, it's very likely to be happening above and below and can have an impact. And that can be in a positive way, or it can be quite a negative way. This chart, there's quite a lot on it, but the one thing I want you to look at is that where it says initial performance gap. So what you're looking at the bottom is the amount of time, and then on the left-hand side, that's what the change is actually happening. So when you're in the current system, and the value that you bring into the business over time increases on that red line. But when there's disruption, a disruptive change, there's always an initial performance gap, always. And people don't like it. It's a classic dilemma when implementing change and transformation, particularly in organizations, because they want to move to the new world without the cost of making the change. But you will know yourself, even from moving house, you know, there is one of those days when you have to pack up everything in your old house, put it in a van or get it in a van and get it transferred to your new house and unpack. And there is that initial performance gap. It may only be a day, it could be a week or a month, but you've got to make that transition to the future system. And again, I'm not sure we have factored that into our organizations and being realistic about there is a performance gap. So let's be honest and acknowledge it. So we've looked at those. Let's think about what is the impact. And I've taken this from the Resilience Institute, which I highly recommend to you if you want to find out a bit more about resilience. There's lots of very, very helpful resources on there. And one of the reasons why I've chosen this picture, it's quite busy, there's a lot on it, and I'm not sure if everybody can see it depending on the size of the screen that you've got, but it's because it has information about at an individual level and also at an organizational level. And it's a spiral in the middle, so it does connect to the fractals that we've seen a bit. But let's, I've split it into two halves. So let's look at the top half of this. And you will see if the sort of center line is the baseline, in a positive way, if things are going well, you know, you're calm and alert at an individual level if you're mastering stress. And in fact, you can be quite energized if it's going positively, and engage in the emotion, and again in a positive way, and train your mind and spirit. And you can, you know, we know when we're in a positive zone, don't you? Can remember when that has happened and being very positive. And so at an individual level, you know, you've got self-knowledge and empathy and optimism and make effective decisions, and you really feel like you're in flow. And at an organizational level, when you're on these different levels, you know, you've got initially stability and focus and organizational well-being, very engaged employees, and leadership and culture that's working very well. And you can deliver fast, and you're flexible, and you really can build a sustainable world-class business. And I don't know any organization that doesn't want to get to that point. So that's the positive end of this spiral. But in times of stress, and you know, that spiral can go down as well. And so, you know, initially there's a bit of confusion, and people can become quite disengaged or withdrawn and feeling very vulnerable and distressed and even depressed. And so on an individual level, you can see how that might manifest itself, you know, an overload of work, which again, people have already hinted at in the initial chat, and maybe loss of attention, loss of energy, fatigue, stress, sleep problems, and really loss of interest and sadness. And you can see how that negative spiral can happen. And at an organizational level, you know, unfocused operations, loss of productivity, low morale, absenteeism or even presenteeism, regrettable talent loss, and organizational death. So, you know, we do not want to end down this spiral. And I suppose as HR professionals, this is one of the things you're naturally looking out for. You know, where are you on this? And are we moving up in a positive, energetic way, or is the undercurrent taking us down? So hopefully you find that quite a helpful check. Another resource I'd like to recommend to you, and this is from the Center of Creative Leadership. And there's a full paper on this. It's very good to read. So, and they talk about 8 resilience practices. And again, I think you've already talked about this in the chat box. So if we think of the 4 elements, you know, on a physical level, on a mental level, emotionally, and socially, and how these interact with each other, you know. And again, lots and lots of people have talked about the importance of exercise, whether it's getting out for a walk or a run or some fresh air every day, being mindful and having time for yourself. And, you know, and that can be, there's so many different mindful activities you know, personally, I like a good jigsaw if I can get away with it. But there's, you know, even going out for a run can be quite mindful, but you know, you find the one that works for you. Emotionally, like, I think we've seen a lot of people not only maybe being emotionally stressed, but also appreciating what they do have and what is working, and really savoring the benefits that we do have, even though we're in this unusual lockdown experience. And connections, we haven't been able to stay connected physically, but so much of us have been able to stay connected electronically. And as much as it does lead to Zoom fatigue, you know, I have been wondering, what would this have been like if this had happened 10 or 20 years ago, that the technology would not have, the infrastructure would not have been there to enable us even to do this today. And then you can see where the overlaps are. And I think a really important one there is sleep. I'm a firm believer that if you get enough sleep, you can probably handle anything. And, you know, I think they lose sleep deprivation as a form of torture. And for those that have ever had any little children, you know, you've probably experienced that torture firsthand. I know I have. So one idea here is look at all these 8 practices in your life and see, have you got a balance across them, or is there gaps there? And that might actually help where you are at the minute. And then finally, a few more things before we go into a breakout. So this one I want to share with you. You know, every day is a new day, and it might have been a great day yesterday and an awful day today, and who knows what tomorrow will bring. But you know, each day, some days you might not get up any of these steps. You might be sitting on the ground going, do you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's how you feel. And other days you might be jumping up 2 steps at a time. You know, I can do it, I want to do it, I'll try it, I will do it, I've done it. And I think this is quite useful, not only for you at an individual level, but for your teams, and maybe even for your leaders, and for them to use with their teams. You know, which step did you get to today? And be gentle with yourself. It's okay. You cannot climb all the steps every day, but at least if you know where you are and give yourself recognition, you know, that's good, that's positive. This one I like because hopefully it's starting to suggest some very practical things. So if you're struggling with your mental health right now, you know, instead of that critical self-talk, celebrate some small wins. Instead of always pushing and pushing, take a nap or a rest. And, you know, it could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, it can be whatever. Build it in to your, you know, book it in as a meeting with yourself. Instead of trying to do it all, ask for help or stop doing some stuff. Instead of overthinking, you know, listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or I'm sure you may not want another thing on a screen, but find another way to stop yourself overthinking. And, you know, your normal workload, we can't all do everything. That performance gap, that's what that's addressing here. You know, let's set 3 realistic goals a day and be kind to yourself. And again, if you're a leader in an organization, this goes both ways, you know, up, down, and around. And then finally, if there's one thing you take away from today, I think this is the one I would wish for you. So when things aren't adding up in your life, start subtracting. And that might be the mathematician in me kicking in, but I like that equation. So we are going to break out into small groups now. Hopefully you'll get a chance to meet some people either that you already know or you haven't met yet. So that should be fun. And what I'd like you to do is think about what your original challenge was that you put in the chat box or that you were thinking about at the beginning. And then hopefully some of the concepts that I've shared with you have given you some more thoughts or ideas. And in your small groups, just talk about, you know, what's working well for you, what's not working. And this can be at any of the levels. So whether it's an organizational team, leadership, leaders that you're supporting, or personally. And then a good technique to use, and I'm sure you already do this and do this with your people, is, you know, what are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? And what are you going to continue doing?
Nice to chat.
Who would like to share? And if you can share in the chat any, you know, a few points that come up. I don't know if anybody remembered to copy and paste in, so feel free to chuck those in there. Who would like to go first and tell us a bit about what their conversations in there?
I might just interrupt if no one else is going to say anything. So I was in a group. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, is that Sally?
Yes, it's Sally. I'm so sorry, my camera doesn't work on my iPad. I had some technical difficulties joining, so I've joined on my iPad.
Go ahead, Sally.
Yeah, we had a really great conversation, and I've certainly taken away some ideas. So I think first and foremost, we're all in agreement in making time to, whether it's meditation, quiet relaxation time to reflect. So some of us do it in the evening before going to sleep, and others do it in the morning, kind of as they wake up, and have that kind of first initial 10 minutes to think through and just almost empty your mind of, or just get ready for the day. So that was kind of one of our ideas that we found to work really well. And then the second one was taking the time in the morning to really reflect on the meetings that you've got in that day, and almost plan what outcomes you want, what your behaviours will be like in that session, and thinking about what you want to achieve from those meetings, because I think we're probably all in the same boat, that meetings just get put in back to back and run over, and you almost don't have that reflective time to think, right, okay, you know, I'm going into my next meeting. Whereas if you've taken the time in the morning to think about, you can refer back to what it is specifically you want to achieve in, you know, the various meetings that we all have during our days. And I think probably one of the things that we were also talking about was really prioritizing ourselves, and realizing that, you know, I think we all thought this time last year, oh gosh, you know, we'll have so much more time because we're not commuting and we'll be at home. Whereas actually that time has just been taken up by working instead of commuting. So taking control of your diary and not feeling as though you have to be always present online, and, you know, blocking time out to do activities, and, you know, really prioritizing yourself and your mental health. So that's kind of where we got to.
Yeah, and in fact, I've started blocking time out to have lunch, because I was realizing I wasn't having lunch, and if it wasn't in my diary, I would book something into it. Another neat trick, and again, I'm sure many of you are already doing this, is having half-hour meetings for 25 minutes, or for 50 minutes for an hour, rather than the full 30 minutes and the full 1 hour. And obviously digitally we can do that when things are booked through diaries and Teams. You know, just book it for the 25 minutes, don't book it for the full half hour. So that's something I know a lot of people have had success in, and even just those 5 minutes to go and get yourself a cup of tea or a comfort break can make you feel a bit better, stretch your legs. Another group, share some stuff that happened in your discussion.
Lucinda,
I was in group 4, so we had some great discussions about, you know, I think we've all got a lot going on with our work at the moment, so kind of TUPE consultations, people are leading, people moving to new roles, businesses under consultation for sales, which is giving a lot of ambiguity, and I think what was great that, you know, the guys in the group have got some great practices in place, such as you know, running, you know, meal planning, which I think is fantastic. That's something I definitely need to do better, because I'm way too close to the fridge at the moment. And as well as just kind of allocating time to do particular tasks. So if you're going to give something 2 hours in your calendar and it goes over, just cut off then. Because I really find that bit of variety of work helps me stay focused. And again, just shutting the laptop off at a reasonable time, because it's just so easy to drift into the evening, and then half the evening's gone, and you know, your mind's still active when you go to bed.
Yeah, definitely. One more group. Was there one more? Somebody's hand up?
Yeah, sorry, my camera's gone dark. I've no idea why it's done this, but anyway, yeah, our group, we talked about, we said how useful the models are that you referred to, Claire Marie, for helping people understand where they're up to, like the change model and the Vuca, and using those with our management teams as well. And we also talked about one of our group had just started a new job in lockdown. So the kind of difficulties that can present in terms of getting to know the team. One of us had been through a redundancy process that we'd had to do virtually, and we talked about how that had been received. I think in terms of the well-being, one of the things I find useful is creating that time. So because I do yoga, I try and do that in the morning. I try and get out for a walk. I know it's difficult, but I think putting things in your diary like you've done, Claire Marie, kind of encourages that. I don't know anyone else in my group wanted to add anything else in.
Yeah, so that's good. And again, all those little tiny pointers. And I don't know if you find it, but even coming along to something like this can help, because you're sort of meeting other people and it's just as bad for them too, which makes us all feel just a little tiny bit better. It's not just me, you know, the world is mad at the minute. And, you know, find the thing. There is too much work to do. You will not get it all done. Okay, so that's the first rule. You won't get it all done. So as Emma was saying, get what you can done this day, and then find a way of switching off, doing something different, and tomorrow is another day. It's a great Gone with the Wind statement, isn't it? Okay, so I'm watching time here, and I just want to share a few final thoughts with you before we close the session. So I don't know if can you see my screen again now? Does that work? Yes, no, maybe, sort of.
We can, Claire. Thank you.
So I just wanted to share a few additional resources. And again, all those models, as far as I know, these slides will be shared with you. And they are good resources to share with your managers and your leaders. And they're good discussion tools. You know, there's no right answers. No one model is the right model. But if you use them in conjunction, they can be helpful. And even if you're starting the conversation, sometimes that is all it takes. Other things I'll direct you to if you want to know more. So John Cotter's Leading Change is always very helpful, and there's also a workbook with that, and that's very practical. I highly recommend, highly, The Dip. Has anybody already read The Dip? It's short, so that's one reason. And it talks about going through a dip and how to get to the other side of the dip. And I use this an awful lot when I'm doing change and transformation with organizations, to help people have a common language and to realize when we're in a dip. Like we are, in fact, I was doing a coaching session this morning, and the HR director I was working with, she was just in a dip, but she was so frustrated. And we were able to go, I clocked it and I went, I actually think you're just in a dip today. I think today is one of those bad days. And we had a great conversation about it. I mentioned the Resilience Institute earlier. Again, there could be stuff in there that could be very useful for you to use in your organizations. And the Center for Creative Leadership, you know, particularly the 8 practices, again, not just for yourself, but maybe for the managers and the leaders that you're supporting. And then Oakridge does a lot of stuff. So if you have any challenges around HR leadership, please come and speak to us. But there's a specific podcast on resilience and more. So if you want to listen to that, and Mark Crabtree's the speaker on that. And I think wherever you get your other podcasts, you can search on Oakridge and find, there's a whole series. It's a great series, actually. And also I would encourage you to seek out coaching support, and it doesn't have to be through Oakridge, though obviously we would be delighted to support you. And many of us do, you know, individual coaching support. But, you know, what do you need to help you do your thing at the minute? What support? And certainly I'm finding a lot of clients who were in chaos this time last year and literally could not find time to have a conversation, put a lot of stuff, including their coaching support, on freeze. And then they've sort of come back around and gone, I've still got too much to do, but this is something I need to help me deal with all this. So let's do a really short mini reflection. So we started the session today, and we thought about your own personal challenge, whether it's at a personal level or a team and leaders level, or the organization. Then we did a little mini masterclass, and we looked at a definition of resilience, at the change curve, at Maslow's hierarchy, at Vuca, and even at Fractals. We thought about disruptive change and the resilience spiral going up or coming down. And we looked at 8 resilience practices, you know, what could practically be done. We also thought about helping others and the steps, you know, what steps are people on today, if any? And we thought about, you know, instead of speaking harshly to yourselves, what positive things could we do? And my favorite, which is, you know, if things aren't adding up, start to subtract. So the final exercise I'd love you to all to participate in is add to the chat box 2 key learning points that you're taking away with you today. And if you put KLP at the beginning, it just makes it easy for us to read. So 2 key learning points. And then I'll give you a minute or so to do that and see what key learning points are coming up. We also did brilliant training. What else can I see in there? You're doing a lot on internal mental health. And you found the podcast, thank you. Key learning point, I'm not alone. There's lots of other people. And again, having a peer group and networking and being part of this professional body, you know, that's why the CIPD is here to help you and support you. Vuca has definitely resonated with people, and the spiral. Don't be hard on yourself. You know, really speak to yourself as your own best friend. Like, you wouldn't speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself half the time, would you? So, you know, be nice to yourself, be gentle. Bouncing forward, yeah, we'll just remember Tigger forever. And time for self. There's lots of resources. Book in 50 minutes instead of an hour. The importance of sleep. Great. It sounds like you've got oodles. Thank you so much for participating. I am going to hand back the baton. And, you know, do please feel free to either get in touch with myself or Oakridge and Oakridge. And it's been a pleasure working with you today. Thank you very much.